Hey y'all, so in this video I'm just going to cover a couple of the news stories that I saw over the week that really caught my attention. The first one is about Spider-Man rejoining the MCU, and I think it's a positive thing especially for Tom Holland, because the thing is, I don't feel personally invested in the MCU anymore. I kind of gave up after it. I kind of gave up on it after the first Avengers movie. Once it became like a formula to how they did things, I lost interest, because to me, formulas really belong in like science and mathematics. Because that's where you kind of get to see a lot of cool things happen because of those formulas. But formulas have the opposite effect in works of art, in that it makes the work of art very mundane and bland and repetitive. And art is supposed to be sort of an expression of the person making it, or singing it, or drawing it, or whatever. And no one makes the same thing every single time as an artist, because you would not be an artist at that point. You'd just be a robot on a factory line, right? So formulas work well for the Marvel MCU. They do not work well for artistry, which is why I lost interest in the Marvel MCU, right? But Spider-Man's return to the MCU, I think, is a good thing, even though I'm not interested in the MCU overall, because I like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. His portrayal as Peter Parker is really well done, I think, and he brings a lot of smiles and enjoyment to his fan base. And though I don't care for the storytelling of the Spider-Man movies, like Homecoming was okay, and then Iron Man 4, Far From Home, right? That served a purpose. It was a decent movie. It served a purpose. So the storytelling associated with Tom Holland's Spider-Man is subpar, is average, mediocre at best, I think. But his involvement, I like. You know what I mean? Like, if that makes any sense. For instance, I like the storytelling more of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies from the early 2000s. But I think that's because those movies were trying to make superheroes more dramatic and more appreciated and more respected, really, towards the adult audience. Because before Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and the first two Bryan Singer X-Men movies and Blade, like, superhero movies were considered a joke. And because they were kind of terrible to watch, you take like the Captain America movie from mid-90s or so, that movie's horrible. Or the first Fantastic Four movie that was created around that same time, awful movie. And then Spawn was a joke, even though good intentions, but just the final product was just trash, right? And then, so those movies, those Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies and X-Men that came out, were geared more towards an adult audience. So it was more dramatic, and it had more complex themes and story beats to them. Whereas this stuff with the MCU is geared towards kids. Like, you want to deny it all however you want, but it's geared towards children. So there's a lot more comedy involved in it, and there's less and less sort of dramatic stakes involved. Like, if someone dies in it, they died, but they'll come back, because they've already made the announcement that, part 2, 3, and 4 are going to come out. So that person's not really dead. Oh, it's not a big deal. So I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but I don't care for the MCU overall, or really for Spider-Man movies. But it's good news that he's coming back, if that makes any sense. And then along those lines, keeping with sort of the MCU, Bob Iger, who he's the CEO of Disney Marvel. He's the CEO of Disney, but also of Marvel, under his umbrella. And he came out with a book recently titled something or whatever. And he was talking about an interaction he had with George Lucas, who created Star Wars. And I don't know if Iger released this anecdote to make himself seem like more of an in-touch person, that can relate to the fan base and whatever, but he came off looking, to me anyway, as a total asshole because of the way that things turned out between George Lucas and Disney. And that is that George Lucas actually went to Bob Iger and said, hey, this is doing around Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilms for the $4-point-something billion. And George Lucas went to Bob Iger and told him, hey, I've got all these story ideas for where I want the rest of this story to go. It's going to end at such and such a point, and I want to explore this thing with the midichlorians and how they permeate throughout the whole force and throughout the whole galaxy. I want to introduce these characters and blah blah blah. So the Star Wars creator had all these ideas for where he wanted to see his movies go, and Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, Disney basically said, yeah, sure, you know, we'll do it, but not really. And we'll stick to the contract as our excuse for not doing it, right? So then once I think The Force Awakens came out, George Lucas was like, what did you do? This is nothing original here. There's nothing new here. And that was Disney's basic response, was that, yeah, we said we would consider it, but we're not contractually obligated to do the stories and to include the ideas that you had. So we're technically sticking to the contract. So we're not bad guys, right? So no harm, no foul. And no, it's coming from someone who's not a huge Star Wars fan, I think this sheds a lot of light on why The Force Awakens and especially The Last Jedi were such terrible movies. I know they made a lot of money, especially The Force Awakens, but The Force Awakens made all its money because of nostalgia. And that's it. Like, you compare to, like, for instance, I only saw the original trilogy movies maybe in 2011, 2012. It was very recent. Like, I wasn't born when the first movie came out, and I was still a child when Part 2 and Part 3 came out. And I never had an interest in Star Wars, but that's for another video as to why. And so when I saw the original trilogy and then I saw Force Awakens, I was like, wait a minute, this looks exactly like the first Star Wars movie. So why is this considered to be new if it's basically a retread of this whole thing? But that's, I'm sure a lot of people on the internet have already commented on that. But what I was getting at was that with the first movie, Luke was a blank slate. He didn't know who his father was. He didn't know his lineage, his connection to anything. He just wanted to be out in the stars. So you're like, okay, we'll go on this journey with him. We'll go on this journey with him and learn as he learns what's going on around him, right? Who he really is and everything. And so, but with The Force Awakens, you got Rey, who was kind of in the same situation, but the movie kind of intimates that maybe her parents are important people in the grand scheme of Star Wars, right? But then you go to The Last Jedi and it's like, got them. They're just regular folks. See, there's the twist, because you thought it was going to be something important, but it turned out to be absolutely nothing, right? No new ideas, right? So then going back to Luke, you saw that he went through struggles and he had hardships in learning to become a better Jedi. But with Rey, she kind of just like that. Oh, well, now she's great at being a Jedi, and there's a bunch of just like unbelievable social justice stuff that didn't need to be there included in the film. And she's a Mary Sue, and she can do everything all at once without a problem. So it's like, well, still, she's no new ideas, no new storylines whatsoever in this thing. You still have a Star Killer base and all this stuff. So it's like, so the guy that created the story, Disney was like, well, we know better than you, creator of this massive franchise that's been going on for, what, 42 years or so now. We know better than you on how and where this story needs to go. So yeah, Iger, total just awful idea, not listening to the guy. Now, maybe, like Jeremy Johns was saying, don't have him write the stories, you know, the scripts or whatever, but use his ideas and give them to a good screenplay writer, you know, something like that. But yeah, total loss. Iger takes the L on that one. But then I think there was another bit of news that came out that said Kevin Feige was going to direct a Star Wars movie. And I think that announcement was sort of to temper the immense rage I imagine is going on with the Star Wars fan base about George Lucas's comment to Iger. And because I think they put that bit out there for Kevin Feige, because Kevin Feige has a lot of goodwill with a lot of goodwill, not only with the general public, but a lot of goodwill with Marvel fans who like the MCU. But those Marvel fans don't always translate to Star Wars fans. And I know Star Wars fans are far more protective of Star Wars than Marvel fans are of the MCU. Like, that is an impregnable fan base of Star Wars, folks, okay? So them hearing, I'm just imagining, them hearing that, oh, we got this Marvel guy. Because here's the other thing that Iger brought out, was that he kind of recognized that maybe they put out too many Star Wars movies too fast. Because, okay, fine. Because the first trilogy of movies, there was one movie made maybe every 3 years, I believe, is what it came out, 77, 80, and then 83 or something like that. So it wasn't like with the Marvel MCU, it isn't like 2 movies a year trying to get to 3 movies a year. It was one movie, you wait 3 years, another movie, you wait 3 years, another movie, right? So with Bob Iger making that admission that they put out too many Star Wars movies too fast, you're gonna announce that the guy that put out 23 movies in 10 years, he's gonna make a Star Wars movie. That doesn't seem to bode very well, because it's like, yeah, I admit that we made a mistake and I have a problem. However, I've learned nothing. What the hell? Now, the news did say that Feige's only due to make one movie, just the one Star Wars movie. However, Hollywood is all about money. So if that one Star Wars movie makes $1 billion, there's no way that they're just going to be like, okay, Feige, you made us $1 billion with this Star Wars movie. Go on back to the MCU and continue doing what you're doing. There's no way in hell that's going to happen. They're going to be like, okay, you made this one Star Wars movie, made $1 billion. Now make us another one next year. Now make us another one. Make us two next year. And then they'll be right back to where, yeah, I think we put out too many Star Wars movies too fast. I've learned nothing. So it's insane. I want to see how that turns out, though, because I think the Star Wars franchise cannot be saved at this point, no matter who you put into the driver's seat, because Kevin Feige created the MCU, or his team created the MCU. That whole format of a long story over 55 movies or however it is, it's basically a TV show at the cinema. So there was no MCU for him to save. He created it out of whole cloth. But with the Star Wars movies, there's 42 years of canon and books and games and movies and TV shows and cartoons that are kind of in peril because of the choices that Disney made with these movies. So I don't see him, Kevin Feige, being able, no matter how creative he is, I don't see him being able to salvage what's left of the franchise, especially since they've proven that they have no new ideas because they don't want to use George Lucas's stuff, especially since they've proven that. What's Feige gonna come with? Oh, all of a sudden, there's no more Star Killer bases, there's no more Death Stars, so what's left? What is he gonna come up with? Worldbreaker Hulk. It's a train wreck over there. But anyway, yeah, so Disney does not come out looking like good people with this revelation at all. Okay, they're still, in my mind, they are still the evil empire. Okay, and I don't say that in like a mean. Well, that I do mean that. I don't say that in a sort of ideologically evil thing where it's like they're going out there committing crimes or whatever. Not like that. They're evil in the sense that they portray themselves as this family-friendly, feel good and everything's rosy. Don't worry about your life. Blah blah blah. Kind of company, when in fact they're going around there telling movie theaters, hey, you will give us this amount of profit from these movies, or you just won't be allowed to show them these Star Wars movies, right? So and also with them acquisitioning Fox Studios now, I think they're going to get something like 40% of all box office in Hollywood, which is absolute bananas, right? So you don't get to that status that they are by being a nice person. It's just impossible. It's not going to happen. There are people just going to walk over and crush without even blinking. So they are still the evil empire. And this revelation, how they screwed over George Lucas's ideas and basically him, and what's turning out to be the actual Star Wars franchise, is just more proof to that point. But moving over to DC, I saw Brandon Routh's picture of what he's going to look like for this year's crossover, Crisis on Infinite Earths on the CW, and it looks amazing. I absolutely love it. Being a fan of the Kingdom Come comic, he looks as comics accurate, I think, as they could get without making him just a little bit more huskier for that Superman. If you haven't read the Kingdom Come comic, it's a very short comic book. Well, I think it's 6 parts, but you can read it in, I don't know, 2 hours, an hour. So it's not very, it's complex writing, but it isn't hard to read, is basically what I'm saying. And Brandon Routh looks the part of this Kingdom Come Superman. He looks older, especially the white that they put in his hair, and the S is just perfectly sized, and it just looks amazing. It looks absolutely amazing. I can't wait to see that. And The last thing, another movie that I can't wait to see is Joker, which has been receiving a lot of, I think, incredibly unnecessary backlash for its violence. Even like Todd Phillips was like, how can you put the Joker on this high bar of violence for movies when John Wick 3, which came out earlier this year, has way more violence, I'm betting, way more violence than the Joker. And then other people's arguments were like, well, you're making people try to sympathize with the character, with an evil person. And my thing is, the Joker, just like John Wick, is a fictional character. They aren't real. So if you can't separate the two, that this is a fake person, this is a real person, then you really don't need to watch movies anymore, or TV shows or anything like that. You know, if you're gonna be like, yeah, I'm on the Joker side, and you don't realize the Joker is not a real person, Joker is a comic book character, and then I don't know what to say to that. But to the other point with the inciting violence thing, I think that's just a stupid argument to blame anyone's actions on something else, right? To go out and say that a shooter shoots up a school because he watched a movie, I think it's detrimental because it takes responsibility of the shooter's actions away from the shooter and puts it on the movie or whatever it was. Do you know what I mean? I think it's incredibly irresponsible and just the dumbest thing. But it kind of goes back to where America has been going the past 40 years, where the media and Hollywood and politicians are still stuck in this fantasy world of the 50s, where everything is great and nothing bad happens. You know, and if something that bad does happen, then it's not that person's fault. It's some other mysterious force is doing it, you know. And it's like, no, the person shot up a school, that person is responsible for their actions. That's like it, right? Because you know the NRA and everything else. I don't want to get too deep with this, but like, they always say guns don't kill people, people kill people. Okay, fine. You want to go with that argument, then movies don't kill people, people kill people. You know, music doesn't kill people, people do. Gaming doesn't kill people, people do. You know, so to kind of try to hold the Joaquin Phoenix, Todd Phillips Joker up to this pedestal, like, well, you're bad, you're gonna make people do bad things. You might as well just tell them, hey, Teletubbies, you're bad, you're gonna make people do bad things. Hey, Martha Stewart show, you're bad, you're gonna make people do bad things. It doesn't make any sense. It's the dumbest argument I've heard throughout my entire life, and yet it's still going on in 2019. It's just the dumbest thing, right? Can you imagine seeing that? Oh, an active shooter at, you know, wherever was taken into custody, and he told the police, well, the Teletubbies, he was watching an episode of the Teletubbies, and that inspired him to go on this shooting spree. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, what? The denial problem that Americans have now is just so far beyond the pale. It's actually comedic to a degree, because, you know, you can have someone say, hey, look at the evidence in front of your face. A plus B equals C, right? And they'll be like, well, maybe there isn't. And be like, maybe there isn't what? I'm just starting a conversation. Maybe the evidence isn't in front of my face. Maybe I don't have a face. Like, what do you mean you don't have a face? I don't get that. I'm just starting a conversation. Maybe I don't have a face. That's why there's no evidence. It's just so dumb. It's just so dumb. So I'm still gonna see the movie, okay? Disregard whatever the goddamn army is saying. There might be violence at a movie. Disregarding all that, right? If there's violence, the people committing the violence are responsible for the violence, all right? Not Eminem, not Marilyn Manson, not Joker the movie, not Tupac, not anyone. The person committing the violence is the person responsible for the violence. Stop letting them get away with taking responsibility for their actions by saying, oh, they were inspired by so-and-so. That's so dumb. So I'm gonna end it there. I feel like I'm getting a little bit too heated. But let me know what you think about the Star Wars news with Feige and Spider-Man's return to the MCU. And also, are you still gonna see the Joker? Because I'm still gonna see the Joker. Who gives a goddamn hell about anyone else's, inciting violence? Give me a fucking break, all right? Stop blaming what people do on something else. All right, so that's it. All right, so that's the final thing. All right, like and subscribe if you like to like and subscribe to things, and I'll see you next time. Ciao. So I didn't want to make this video too heavy with social issues, because I know entertainment is meant to help you escape from stuff, but it kind of just annoyed me too much with the Joker stuff and then the revelation with George Lucas. The Joker thing, I've harped on that enough, but the George Lucas thing really kind of upset me, because you have this guy that, you know, put in his heart and soul into this thing, and then to have a company just come out and just say, yeah, we're gonna continue your story, and then just bastardize everything that he did, you know, with this nonsense that they created. And it's kind of annoying, because I like watching an artist's creation from start to finish, you know, from like when I used to draw quite a bit when I was younger. It'd be like if I was drawing like a bunch of characters and I had ideas for these characters, and then someone comes along and they say, hey, I'll buy these drawings off of you, and I tell them, okay, but I've got these unfinished characters that I want to do. I want this to look like that, that to look like this. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then in front of me, they take an eraser and they just kind of erase everything off of the board. And then they're like, we're cool, right? I'd be like, no, we're not cool. What? This is everything that I had. So that kind of just annoyed me on that level. And Disney. And I did do a version of this video earlier today, but I was still like half asleep, and I don't remember what the hell I said in the video, and it felt like I was mumbling quite a bit, and my voice was just like, I sounded like a zombie from The Walking Dead, where I just like, so I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna bother finishing editing that one. I'll just, you know, go to the gym, wake up a little bit, and then try again. And plus, I didn't want to do a separate video for each topic, because that's just too much time recording and editing. I ain't got all that time, it's the weekend. So that's it, see you later.